there's a bit of a misunderstanding in some circles as it relates to Donald Trump. And I've kind of concluded that over the weekend as it relates to the BuzzFeed story and the way the media continues to cover a president. They believe it's their patriotic duty to hate this president. They believe, Rev, sincerely, that it's in the country's best interest if they continue to try and disparage and delegitimize this president.
And when you say they, the mainstream media?
They be in the media.
Okay.
I got a friend of mine. He's far more liberal than let me back up. He's probably not far more liberal. He's far more sympathetic to government than I am. I don't know if that's the official definition of liberalism, but he believes in hard work. He believes in, a certain creed to live your life by. He's a good dude. He's just a lot more sympathetic to government than I am. And we're having these debates every other day about the role and responsibility of Trump, the role and responsibility of the Congress, the role and the responsibility of we, the voting public. But I got to believe the press has a role and a responsibility in helping put this country back in a governing fashion. And when you have things happen like happened over the weekend, and look, they'll blame it on BuzzFeed, but no less than 200 times did a major media outlet say, if this is true. Now, I think Jim Clyburn said that's all the cover you need because you're saying up front, if this is true. Well, if you don't know it's true, don't report it. I mean, if you're a news agency and you've not been able to validate nor, what am I trying to say, Rev? I mean,
you can't confirm it.
You got to check it for its accuracy.
Right.
I mean, you got to make sure it's accurate. And if you can't confirm of its accuracy, then don't report on it because it's nothing but rumor. It'd be like me saying Obama's the Antichrist. Well, prove it. Well, if true.
Well, then they use the BuzzFeed report to spur the discussion about impeachment.
Because they believe it's their patriotic duty. I just heard Jim Clyburn, congressman from South Carolina. I think he's minority whip now that the Democrats have taken over the majority. And his exact quote was, the reason it's a non-starter, the compromise, the deal Trump put on the table Saturday, is because it gives him a permanent wall and us a temporary fix. So he's telling you right there, it's him and us. We're not in this thing together. We don't care if a wall's good for the safety and security of America.
Who wasn't mentioned in that comment? The American people.
Correct. He has no interest in the American
country.
people. He has no interest in the American people. His interest and focus is what's good for the Democrats. How can we get more Democrats elected? I know there's this other thing we're supposed to do, and that's govern and be involved in the executing of public policy. I understand that's kind of an ancillary task that they've given us. But at the end of the day, my job's to win as many seats as I possibly can for the Democrats. You see, the Democrats have a problem now. The problem the Democrats have, and I'll be very, very, very critical of the Republicans. You're seeing up close and personal exactly what I've told you the immigration policy in America is. The Republicans are saying the reason we can't get a wall, the reason we can't get immigration reform is the Democrats have the majority in the House, and we can't get it through the proper legislative channels. Well, you had Paul Ryan as Speaker of the House less than a year ago, and you weren't able to get it done. Why? Because you didn't want to get it done. Because the majority of your party believes that immigration reform would be bad for your corporate clientele. Here we go again. The reason we have the immigration policy in America that we do have is because that's the policy both parties want. They both have skin in the game in having an open border and allowing for all these unskilled laborers to come into the country. I've told you 1,000 times. The Democrats want them in here because they believe in the long run far more will vote for them as they run for re-election. The Republicans want them in here because they believe it keeps the unskilled labor force wage stagnant and corporations can make more money because we've manipulated supply and demand. So we've got immigration policy. And if the Republicans really wanted to build a wall, then we'd have a wall because they had control of Congress. They had the president. They had a lot of creative things they could have done. Nuclear option, national state. But see, Rev, now the Republicans have somebody to blame for not getting the wall built. Now the Republicans have somebody to blame for there not being the constructing of a physical barrier. The only person in Washington who wants to secure the southern border is Donald Trump. The Republicans don't want to secure the border. The Democrats don't want to secure the border because if the Republicans did want to secure the border, we had ample opportunities to build a physical barrier. We would have something done by now, but Paul Ryan is a globalist And Paul Ryan found Donald Trump's theory of politics, this nationalist populism, to be deeply offensive and anti-intellectual and didn't want anything to do with it. But now the Republicans catch a break. Now they can blame Nancy Pelosi. You had Paul Ryan in the speakership for a long time, and we didn't address securing the border with a fiscal barrier. So don't tell me it's all about the Democrats. Now the Democrats can be the boogeyman. The Democrats are the reason. We're trying, American people. You're going to get a postcard in the mail next week telling you how hard I'm willing to try if you'll only send me a contribution. See, we're back to that game again. Nobody in Washington wants to address immigration reform because everybody in Washington gets something out of not having a fiscal barrier. And Trump's kind of goofing it up for everybody because he seriously wants to build a wall. I mean, he sincerely wants to spend about $5.5 billion in constructing a fiscal barrier in some places on our southern border, and nobody wants to do it. As part of that, Donald Trump proposed a compromise Saturday. And the crux of the compromise is a 3-year respite for the Dreamers. In other words, we've got 36 months to try and figure out some of the Dreamers. I'm willing to sit down at a table with Pelosi and Schumer and McConnell and Jim Jordan. I mean, some of the other McCarthy, Kevin McCarthy. Let's get some leadership in the House and Senate. Come to the White House. Let's see if we can do something about these Dreamers. Because I'm not adamantly opposed to extending the rights of Dreamers. That's these kids that came over here, or the parents came over here illegally. The kid is born here. The kid's not responsible for where they're born. So Trump says, okay, I'm willing to do something. Now, the Democrats will say, well, that's not a compromise because you took that from us. You know, when Obama was elected, then you overturned his executive order. Well, I mean, Trump is giving something. He's giving them back what Obama had. Obama had a 3-year temporary reprieve.
Yeah, he's promoting a legislative answer to something that a lot of people consider was an illegal executive order.
Correct.
Which is a reasonable solution.
It's a compromise.
And it is an improvement.
Whether it's a reasonable solution or not, it's a compromise. It's a very legitimate compromise, but the Democrats have no interest in that. But I think the Democrats will have a problem. But because I looked at polling again over the weekend, Trump's approvals are 41, 42-ish, somewhere thereabout. But the American public opinion on building a barrier on the southern border is beginning to creep up. I think we're beginning to believe it's pretty crazy that we've not done anything to securing the southern border. I think Trump can hang in there for an extended period of time, and I think he comes out okay. But it's kind of odd and interesting to me that the Republicans are now going to blame the Democrats and Nancy Pelosi for being the only reason we can't get a fiscal barrier when Paul Ryan was the speaker, less than 2 months ago. You had ample opportunity. You didn't want to do it. Ryan had no appetite. No interest at all in building a fiscal barrier. What Trump's got to understand is on this particular issue, he has no teammates. There may be a few in the House. There may be a few in the Senate that have an interest in securing the southern border. But by and large, they kind of like things as they are. They really do. But now they can blame the Democrats. And they can fundraise off of the backs of Nancy Pelosi, just as Pelosi. Now, Pelosi's got to propose some sort of what's an alternative? I mean, Trump makes the overture. Here's what I'm willing to do. See, Pelosi says that's a non-starter. That can't be the only answer. See, if the media were doing their job, the media would say, okay, Speaker Pelosi, I understand that's a non-starter. What is a starter? What is something you have an interest in? See, she's really got herself in a tough place because she voted for a wall, fiscal barrier, 5 years ago, and now she calls the wall immoral. So when the Obama administration was requesting funding to construct some sort of fiscal barrier, it was not immoral. Now that Trump wants to do the exact same thing, it's an issue of morality.
Well, what does she say when she's asked this question in national media interviews? I mean, when they push her on that issue and they play her speeches, what's her response?
Well, that would be a good question. You'll never know the answer to that question.
Oh, because
that goes back to what I said last week and the week before. It's hard to have a political debate when one side is never forced to give their stance, to tell you where they stand. And there's nothing going to happen. There's nobody in the media that has any interest in pinning Pelosi down or pinning any Democrat down for that matter and say, what would you do? What could you live with? The president has made an overture. I understand you don't like it because it still consists of a fiscal barrier. What are you willing to do? What are you willing to offer up as a counter proposal to his initial proposal? They don't offer anything, Rep. They don't offer anything because the Democrats don't have any ideas. I mean, we're dealing with a political party who is selling its soul to socialism. That's what we're dealing with. And I don't know how they put that genie back in the bottle. I was reading bunch of stuff last night watching the football game about, AOC, and I think Kamala Harris may announce her candidacy for president today. And she's running under the campaign of free college and free health care. I mean, in essence, that's what that will be the battleground of the Democrat Party in this primary. What candidate can come up with a way to give the American people the most free stuff? That's how you're going to win a Democrat primary in America today. Which candidate, which campaign can offer up the most free stuff? You were asking about the media a second ago, and I found an article. There's a polling company that does a good job of societal trends. I'm trying to think of what the name of it is. CrowdPack. They profess to be nonpartisan. You always wonder when somebody tells you up front we're nonpartisan. Well, you got to tell me you're nonpartisan. I mean, you're trying to make yourself appear to be nonpartisan. But it's very interesting to me because they did a poll on professions by political leanings. They kind of grouped people together, and here's what they came up with. And they went back and looked at sectors of the economy, their political contributing, the opinions they gave to sample polling, and here's what they've come up with. And I find this very, very, very interesting because I think it's very important. We'll call these the moderate professions. You ready? These are the ones in the middle. Now, they're not all directly in the middle of political bias or not, but they would be referred to as moderate, or professions that consist of a lot of moderates. Real estate has a lot of moderates working in it. Banking and finance has a lot of moderates. Automotive manufacturing and dealers have a lot of moderates. The legal profession, pharmaceuticals, hedge funds and private capital, lobbyists. Well, the reason hedge funds and private capital and lobbyists and banking and finance and real estate for that matter, legal would be one, the reason they would be moderates is because they play both sides. Their professions are affected by government policy and edict, and they have to be friendly with the conservative side and the liberal side. You never know who may be running the joint. So if you're a lobbyist, if you're a hedge fund or private capital manager, if you're somebody in the pharmaceutical or banking business, you've always got to be aware. You can't be perceived as, we're not going to pass policy to help this crowd because this crowd's always in bed with the other crowd. So it's not that their political views are moderate. It's the majority of their contributions have been to both candidates. You got a pharmaceutical company. I looked last night. There's a pharmaceutical company gave Pelosi about $40,000 and gave Ted Cruz about $50,000. Well, they're not an ideologue. They're doing what they're hedging their bets. I mean, they want to be in Pelosi's good graces, and they want conservatives in the Senate to know that, hey, we don't have a problem with you guys either. They're appeasing is what they're doing. They've been practical thinkers, in all honesty. And then when you leave the moderate fields and you begin to drift to the right, here are people and industries and professions who tend to be much more conservative than normal. Building and construction. If you're in the building and construction industry, agriculture, mining, oil and coal, oil, gas, and coal. So if you're in the oil, gas, and coal industry, the building and constructing industry, agriculture, farming, mining, you see there's kind of a blue-collar tendency there. That's people who would be on the right. Not extremes, but they would be more conservative than the moderates. Here's the left. And I mean, there are two industries that are so far separated from anybody else. I'll start with online computer services. They're left of center. Here we go. There are three that are just so far to the left, it's unbelievable. Newspapers and print media, academics and entertainment. So the entertainment industry,
there you go,
academics and newspaper and print media are off the charts to the left. You know who's off the charts to the right? Mining and agriculture, coal miners and farmers. And what I'm trying to do is paint a picture and make an argument. Do you trust coal miners and farmers, or do you trust movie stars, college professors, and elites in the media? That's a pretty interesting dynamic. We got a lot of moderates. Lobbyists, banking and finance, automotive dealers, hedge funds and private capital, people in the real estate industry. That would stand to reason. You would expect those people to be kind of squarely situated somewhere in the middle of the political debate. And then on the far extreme to the right, or as far as any industry is, you've got mining and farming. And then on the far left, you've got three. You've got, as I said, newspapers and print media, academics, and the entertainment industry.
No surprises there.
No surprises at all there. And I keep going back to Jefferson's quote about, I'd rather be judged by 12 farmers than 12 lawyers any day of the week.